I was in a very, very fundamental evangelical church on Sunday. I was in Max Lucado's church in San Antonio, Texas, a mega church of 10,000. And I talked about this issue, but talked about it in terms of stories. And I talked about when I was a boy in high school, West Philadelphia High. And there was a gay kid named Roger. And we humiliated Roger when we found out that he was gay. We talked to him in ways that diminished his dignity, hurt him. On Thursdays, when the other boys would go into the shower after phys ed, he would never go, he was afraid to. When he did take his turn, all by himself, we waited with our wet towels. And when he came out, we whipped them at him and stung his little naked body. I wasn't there. I wasn't there when they grabbed little Roger and dragged him into that shower room, this skinny, gay kid. And they shoved him into the corner and he doubled up in a fetal position and 5 guys urinated all over him. He went home. They say it was 10 o'clock when he went to bed that night. And they estimate that it was about 2 o'clock in the morning when he went down to the basement of his house. And he hung himself. And I knew I wasn't a Christian. I believed all the Orthodox doctrines, sound as they come. But if Christ was a living presence in my life, I would have been Roger's friend. I would have stood up for him. I would have said to the other guys, leave him alone. He's my friend. But I was afraid to be Roger's friend in a tough school like West Philadelphia High. Because if you become the friend of a kid like Roger, it's not long before they're talking about you. And I didn't want to lose the popularity contest. I wish I could go back and be Roger's friend. So that one day when I stood before the judgment seat, Jesus could say to me, well done. Blessed are ye, when they reviled you and persecuted you and said all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Great will be your reward in heaven. And I said to this very, 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 very evangelical church, if you know any of Max Lucado's books, you know who I'm talking about. One of the more popular evangelical writers of our time. And I said, I don't know what this church is about. But if it's not about loving people like Roger, it doesn't deserve to be called a church. I don't know what else you're about, but if you don't love those that the churches of America have pushed off to the margins, you're not anything like Jesus wanted you to be. It was an extremely fundamentalist church, extremely fundamentalist. There was not a negative reaction as I challenged them on this point. There was a reaction. Peggy and I were standing at the line greeting people as they left. And for the first time, members of that church who were gay, who were lesbian, came out and said, this is the first time I felt like I could breathe. I love this church, I love the preaching, but this was the first time I could breathe. Women crying on your shoulder. I'm one of them. It was a way of releasing something that was building up. Stories. Jesus understood this. Stories do much better than polemics.
That makes me wonder, how do you use the Bible to have these conversations when you have these conversations with...
Conversations that Tony and I have, the dialogue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get right up.
Well, basically, Tony's and my disagreement has gotten smaller and smaller in area as we found a lot of common ground. When you love somebody and you find yourselves on opposite sides of the fence, you do everything you can to find every way that you do agree. And Tony and I found a lot of things we agree on. We don't have disagreements on really almost any other verse in the Bible except Romans 1 when it comes to gay marriage. And and both of us take Scripture very seriously. I look at the first chapter of Romans and I see a lot of what Tony said it meant this morning, and I see Paul talking about the worship of Aphrodite in Corinth, where Romans 1 was written, and he's condemning orgies that took place in that pagan temple, and it has nothing to do with the marriages of my gay and lesbian friends, nothing at all to do with that. And Tony sees it a different way, and we talk about that, and then we talk more about the scriptures that we do agree on.
Well, I think that you can say more on that. You handle the clobber passages very well.
Oh, I think everybody here is up to here with the clobber passages.
So you know them.
And so
what I do love what you do is she stands up and says, first of all, I don't want to hear any talk about the homosexual lifestyle.
Yeah, I will.
This is a good line.
People use words wrong to make people think wrong, and whenever you hear that term homosexual lifestyle, you should speak up and say that's a total misnomer, unless it has an S on the end of it, because there are as many homosexual lifestyles as there are heterosexual lifestyles. And especially when I'm talking to college kids, I like to say, for instance, Madonna and I are both heterosexual women, but there isn't a heterosexual lifestyle that she and I share. Mainly because I can't sing, of course, but you get the point. And I'll take the opportunity to say here, never let anything be said that you know isn't true without speaking up about it. You don't have to jump in with a big argument. I always say I'm more of a Cocker Spaniel than a Doberman Pinscher, but you say something and hope maybe they'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about what you said and think, oh dear God, what if that woman's right? That's what I like to do.
You might also talk about how you handle it when they say, but doesn't Deuteronomy and Leviticus say that gay people are an abomination in the eyes of God? A good way of diffusing that.
Tony and I both like to say that, yes, it does say that, but that's real close in the Bible to where it says to touch the skin of a dead pig is an abomination, which kind of messes up the Super Bowl. And of course, it also says that to wear clothing made out of 2 different kinds of cloth, say polyester and wool, in the same garment or wearing them at the same time is an abomination. So those I can easily leave behind. We do have that place in Romans where we don't.